Welcome, everybody. This is Ray of RebelEars.com. I want to thank everybody who's tuning in to the podcast. So today is actually a special episode of the podcast. I am promoting my first ebook, 10 Quick Tips to Be a Successful Audio Engineer. So today's podcast is actually dedicated to Dan Cohen. Rest in peace. He was one of my mentors while at Castle Hill Studios. He was actually one of the owners of Castle Hill Studios. When I was interning, I learned from him from mixing, understanding signal flow, how to set up a session, helping me to build my own vocal booth from looking at their vocal booths. I learned a lot from Castle Hill Studios to this day. That's why all these tips are tips that I actually learned working at Castle Hill Studios. So I start off the ebook talking about myself, my little bio. My name is Stephen Moore, professionally known as Ray. I have my own home studio with a podcast called the Rebel Ears Podcast. I also have a YouTube channel and my website, RebelEars.com. I talk about starting off 2020 with things I've learned from the past sessions, from my time going to school for audio engineering at SAE Institute, interning at Castle Hill Studios, and also being an assistant engineer for Steve Hibicki, which is a multi-platinum recording engineer. I talk about just because I have a few credits and on-hands experience does not mean that I stopped learning, but instead feel like I haven't learned enough. Always strive to learn daily. I took the time to look through past tweets that can help some engineers and even producers to be able to bring out the best of any sessions. So let me stop explaining my background and let's go through the 10 tips that I use during every session. So the first tip is don't delete the first take. On Twitter, I put capture the first take. It might not be your best, but there will be ideas compiled for those with a later, more polished take. So learn how to keep used tracks in a separate track that can be used later for reference or as part of the project. This method is used in the professional aspect to get an idea of where the track is heading. It could be a one-take verse. Don't rush the process if it takes time. Enjoy it. Your first take might be good. If you don't get it all on the first take, don't worry. You should go over and try it again. The more takes you have, the more you're able to create from. Because I know a lot of artists who will record a take and then feel comfortable, and then when they get it mixed, they're not satisfied because they might have missed a word. One word can ruin the whole track. If it doesn't sound right, you have to go back to the session, spending money that you didn't want to spend at the time to record it. So make sure if you have multiple takes, save them. You never know, you might need it on the next session or next collab. You never know. Second tip, start before the start. On Twitter, I put in set up the session before the session starts. Nothing is worse than a client waiting for the session to start when it's paid for. Even if it's free, you should treat every session like you are working with the A-list client. Get to the studio ahead of time to open up your DAW you are using and have your template already set up for the artist coming in. I recommend getting there 10 to 15 minutes early to make sure everything in the studio is running smoothly to avoid any troubleshooting. So many sessions I've seen with engineers coming at the same time the artist is coming in, and now the artist is waiting for the engineer to set up and not understanding they're wasting the artist's time where they could have got things done. That's why I would recommend you getting there early to make sure you can open up Pro Tools, making sure the mics are okay. If there's anything wrong before the artists get there, you have enough time to fix it. Because it really doesn't take that long to open up a session and start it. You just got to have it open. Third tip, have more than one hard drive. On Twitter, I put, if it's not saved 3 times, it doesn't exist. I have a hard drive for traveling purpose when mobile to numerous studios, a hard drive I keep in my home studio, and one hard drive that I rarely use to store all my sessions and files. I would recommend investing in a hard drive between 500 gigabytes to 2 terabytes. The reason for this is to have enough space to keep big files without it being a big hassle, and not too much space that can give an issue when transferring to another hard drive. I would do research on the best quality hard drives. I prefer Western Digital brand hard drives, in my opinion. That's what I use. And you never know, you might be in a situation where you're using one hard drive and it stops working. So you have a backup. With me, I back up my hard drives bi-weekly. So anything I've done a week ago, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, I can still pull it up and I don't have to worry about one hard drive. It's always good to have multiple hard drives whenever necessary. The next tip, reference a track. On Twitter, I put use a reference track to have a better understanding of your mix. That's why we listen to our mixes on as many platforms as possible in an effort to create a blend that sounds good from phones to laptop, from studios to vehicles, from earbuds to home theaters. A reference track is simply a quality mix and or master song that is used to test your mix against a song on the radio. You should have some kind of reference track with mixing or mastering the song for comparison purpose. And it's always good just to reference off of something you're comfortable with, what your ears are used to. Play that with your mix and see how it comes out. So the next tip, treat it professionally. On Twitter, I put, treat a recorded session like a live show. Never get too comfortable that you slack on the quality or feel like you have all the time in the world. Make it feel like it's the last project that you'll ever work on. Whenever I'm in the studio, I treat it like it was being recorded in front of thousands at a concert, like work in front of house, the engineer at a live event. There is nothing wrong with bringing friends to the session, but if they're going to hinder you from getting the best out of you, then there is no reason for them to be there. Nothing is wrong with having a closed session. I highly recommend closed sessions because too many people in a session can really ruin the vibe or the flow, depending on their reason for being there. Now, if it deals with business and they're there like one producer, one artist, or a few artists, or the client or executive producer, that makes sense. But if it's just someone there to just chill, and it's okay to get opinions, but if they're just there not really serving a purpose, then if it's not meant to be, don't let it happen. The next tip, don't mix in solo. On Twitter, I put, when mixing, don't solo each track to mix separately. Mix it as a whole. Might be confusing for those who are new, but the point of this tip is to hear how all the drums, instruments, and vocals will sound together. When you mix one track in solo and do the same on another track, it won't sound balanced because it was not mixed together but separate. When I solo, I do it to get a balance out of a few tracks, like the kick in 808. Maybe the snare and hi-hat, maybe the vocals in the background. You should always mix together because in the end, you're not going to listen to the drums by itself or the vocals by itself. You're going to listen to it as a whole. So try practicing mixing as a whole. The next tip, record it all. On Twitter, I put, if the artist is in the recording booth, always record. Have the mindset to automatically press record whenever the artist is in front of the microphone. The best takes are the ones that's unpredictable and when the artist feels comfortable, especially when they feel like they are not being recorded. If you tell an artist that you are not recording but doing the practice run, they will feel comfortable. So take the time to get the best quality by constantly recording. Even if they walk in the booth just to do some humming or probably freestyling, that could be something that you can use for the intro, outro, the hook, background ad-libs. You'd be surprised. It works every session for me. As soon as they walk in the booth, they probably not realizing you're recording. They say something like, oh man, I wish I had it recorded. Now you actually have that take, and now the session's going to run a whole lot better knowing the fact that the artist can trust you enough to record everything. The next tip is the most important tip of all. Get paid. On Twitter, I put, always get a deposit for a session. This should be number one out of all the tips. Getting half of the payment before the session starts can prevent last-minute cancellations. You will be surprised how often this happens, and receiving a deposit will prevent problems from having to pay for the room that is booked. No matter who you are working with, get a deposit, even if it's your friend. This is meant for all those engineers, producers who are working with artists who are friends or someone you know or someone new or someone feeling like, they can just take advantage. Always get a deposit. It's business. There's nothing personal about it. You're trying to make your money just like they're trying to make records. I've seen people who will come to the session, tell the engineer after the session is done, like, oh man, let me come back tomorrow to give you the money. Nope, because that'll cause problem in itself, because whoever owns the studio you're trying to book a session at, they're going to look at you like someone who can't be trusted. So always get a deposit to save yourself. Next tip, flat frequency response headphones. On Twitter, I put, invest in good quality headphones with a flat frequency response. Headphones with a flat frequency response won't color the sound by boosting the bass or treble. These are the best type of headphones when you want accurate overview of the session you are working on. When I am mobile and I have my iLock, an SD card with the session easier than a bulky hard drive, my laptop, and my Audio-Technica ATH M20X. If you ever use Beats by Dre, you understand that those are more for like bass heavy lovers. And with me, that's cool, but I want to make sure I get a balanced mix that I don't have to worry about the bass is too heavy, so I have to turn that down. So things like that you need to watch out for. Understand the headphones you're using, understand the equipment you're using. As time goes by, you will get better. The next tip, be open to listen. On Twitter, I put, be willing to accept constructive criticism. Learn to take other people's opinions with a grain of salt. Things that you might not know, somebody else will if you are willing to listen and learn. Even if you are the engineer of the session, does not make you the gatekeeper of the session, but the vessel for the artist or producer to get to where they want to sonically. The best way to learn is to be open on all the sessions, but still be able to direct the artist to where they need to go. Be open to constructive criticism. Don't be judgmental. Work with the artist or producer that you are working with. Get the best quality out of the session and know that you're doing your part, but don't feel like you have to take over. If your opinion is needed, then give your opinion. But in the end, don't forget that you are getting paid to run the session. Sometimes you're not going to be asked your opinion, but it's good to keep that open. The summary, just going down from all the tips. 1, don't delete the first take. 2, start before the start. 3, have more than one hard drive. 4, reference a track. 5, treat it professionally. 6, don't mix in solo. 7, record it all. 8, get paid. 9, flat frequency response headphones. And 10, be open to listen. I will have this ebook on my website, rebelears.com. I'll put it on Twitter, put it on my IG and on Facebook. So if you want to get this ebook, you can hit me up on the podcast when you can put your information in, or, go to the website, download it, and let me know what you think. And anything that you like, please screenshot it, DM me at rebelears.ray or tweet it to Rebel Ears. This is Ray from rebelears.com. From everybody at Rebel Ears, I want to say thank you for listening and keep tuning in.